Welcome to the Flying Octopus Podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
So a few weeks back, I mentioned that we had some baby bunnies out behind the house, living under our patio, and there was risk of our dog finding them. I just wanted to share an update for everyone who's been concerned. There have been no incidents, and they have moved out and are, adult bunnies somewhere else. As far as I know, they hopefully didn't get picked up by a hawk or anything. But as far as I know, they were out living their best lives, in the green space behind us. So just wanted to provide an update. I know you all have been thinking about that. The bunnies are safe, as far as I know.
Sounds like PETA showed up and paid you a visit there, Tony. I told you guys offline, but I like to share this story too, is that we're having some issues out here, but we don't have lovely furry bunnies. We have creepy, gross, stanky possums. And man, it's almost similar to your story, but it's probably worse. Our dog, a chocolate lab, saw a possum running on our back wall in our backyard. And all I heard, I was in the garage watching hockey, and all I heard was this shriek, this shrill. I thought we were either being attacked or someone was being killed. And it was my wife screaming because our lab had jumped up on that wall and grabbed that possum and shook it like one of those fish shaker things that they used to sell late night on TV. And the thing about possums that people aren't always paying attention to is this thing had babies all over it, attached to it while it was walking. So when she shook it, all these babies just went flying in the air. It's like some landed on the other side of the fence, some were stuck up in a bush, others were under the bush. The possum played dead like they do. Anyway, to make a long story short, the possum played dead. We came back about 15 minutes later. All the babies were gone and the possum was gone, except one. One little baby possum was sitting there. And I had enough drinks to the point where, all right, I'm going to pick up this possum. I can't watch this thing just cry and die here. So I ended up putting on my gardening gloves, picking it up, putting it on a plate, and leaving it out there that night. And luckily, we woke up in the morning, the possum was gone. So we're hoping, just like you, Tony, that there was no hawk or the mama came back for her. That's what we were hoping for. So there's your guys' updates for the gardening issues that Tony and I have in our backyard. Welcome to episode 36 of the Flying Octopus Podcast. I'm your co-host, Evan Sabrin, joined by, as always, Tony Wolak and Devin Little. On today's episode, we have a lot to get to. First and foremost, we're going to go get into Mitch-a-Palooza, the summer of Mitch Marner. If you haven't heard, the superstar winger for the Maple Leafs, who just turned 28 on May 5th, will be an unrestricted free agent after the Leafs were eliminated by the Florida Panthers in a 6-1 Game 7 rout this past Sunday. This might be it for Mitch Marner and the Maple Leafs. We'll dive into this situation and discuss the pros and cons of signing Marner to a long-term deal for the Red Wings. But let me preface this first, and Tony's going to touch on this momentarily. There's going to be a lot of teams in on Marner. So I don't want to see fans blowing up and going crazy that the Red Wings didn't sign Mitch Marner, because there's 31 other teams that would love to get their hands on a generational superstar like Marner. This feels like it could be close to the summer of Steven Stamkos in 2016. We're also going to have a little fun today with each of us coming up with two bold moves that we would like to see Detroit general manager Steve Yzerman make via free agency or possibly the trade route. I got some crazy ones, maybe not quite realistic, but I think it's something fun, and it's interesting to take on how this team can improve in the next season. And last, we'll continue with our prospect profile. This week, we'll take a look at Justin Carbonneau, a 6'1", 192-pound right winger who plays for Blainville-Boisbriand Armada in the Q. So we're looking forward to hearing Devin discuss the potential impact he could have for Detroit with the 13th overall pick. Before we get started, I just want to remind you where you can find us. Watch us on YouTube at the Flying Octopod channel, and you can follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Flying Octopod. Also, don't forget to listen to iTunes and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a like, review, and we'll forever be grateful. So let's get into it. Mitch-a-Palooza, the summer of Mitch Marner. You guys remember that from old school, right? That's what the poster was that we just kind of tweeted out. Great movie, great movie. When the Stanley Cup Finals wrap here in mid-June, the attention of the hockey world is going to be shifting to Marner's next contract. He's a top 10 talent in this league. I think we can all agree on that. He's played 657 games in the NHL, scoring 221 goals and 520 assists for a total of 741 points. And let's also not forget, he was a Selke Trophy finalist in 2023. He'll be looking for a big, hefty payday. Tony, there's going to be no shortage of suitors for this guy. We all know that. That's not a secret. Talent like this doesn't come open on the market very frequently. So let's go over the pros and cons of Mitch Marner signing in Detroit. Like how realistic do you think it is? And is it the best move for Detroit? Because like I said, it's going to be a hefty price. Or would that money be better spent elsewhere, addressing multiple needs on defense in the top six?
I'm still reeling from Mitch-a-Palooza. What a great movie. Oh man. All right. So yeah, I don't know if the right question is being asked. It's always, should the Red Wings sign Marner? And this applies to just about every player, right? From free agency of years past. Should the Red Wings sign this player? Should the Red Wings sign this player? But using Marner as an example, that's not the right question to ask. It's not. I say that because the question, should the Red Wings sign Marner? The answer is yes or no, meaning they either sign him or it puts the decision in Detroit's vote. It's not that. The decision is in Marner, with Marner. The question should be, should the Red Wings pursue Mitch Marner? That's the appropriate question. And frankly, it's yes. They should pursue him, much like the other 31 teams in the league. It's not very often that a talent of his level reaches free agency. And he might not. It looks that way, but he might not. Like Evan was saying, this is similar to when Steven Stamkos was planning to hit the market back in 2016 and end up re-signing with Tampa Bay on that crazy day that also saw Taylor Hall traded for Adam Larson and PK Subban traded for Shea Weber. I was running a webinar when all that went down, and I was not paying enough attention to my job. I'll be completely honest with you guys. But yeah, I mean, diving into the pros and cons of pursuing Marner, I have no objection to it. I really think the Red Wings should pursue him. It's going to cost a lot for sure. It's going to be a 7-year deal that gets it done more than likely. And it's probably going to be in the range of $13 million per season. And that is way more than the Red Wings have paid anyone in the salary cap era, at least in terms of raw dollar amount. It's tricky because pursuing Marner means that you may be neglecting other needs. But I guess the thing that kind of is the seals the deal from my perspective on if the Red Wings should pursue Marner is their offense at 5-on-5 last year stunk. And Marner is one of the best offensive players in the league. For me, it's a no-brainer to pursue him.
I am very torn for my part when it comes to the Marner topic. I think in a vacuum, yes, absolutely. All three. There's a reason every team is going to be interested in Mitch Marner. He's the type of player that immediately makes your team better. There's just no way around it. He's a really, really good player. Even though he, as you mentioned, Evan, was a Selke finalist recently, kind of still an underrated forward in terms of his defensive ability too. A lot of people just kind of look at his playmaking abilities and forget that he's actually pretty good in his own end too. In fact, he even has played a few shifts on the blue line on defense for the Maple Leafs. Makes you think of Sergei Fedorov back in the day, actually. But the thing that
game to know,
the thing that I always go back to when I think about this topic is how much is too much. Because the Red Wings don't have infinite funds like they did in 2002 when they signed every big name possible, basically. The Red Wings have some players they have to take care of. They have a good amount of cap space right now. They got to sign Albert Johansson. They got to sign Patrick Kane. A few others they got to get signed to. Ultimately, they should still have a good chunk of change left over after taking care of their own business. But if you sign Mitch Marner, you're just about at your cap. You're going to have like a little bit of wiggle room after it, most likely. But if you're expecting to make more than one big addition aside from Mitch Marner, I don't see it unless you're planning on also buying out Justin Hall and buying out Vladimir Tarasenko or moving them on, whatever. And that's very much a possibility. But, sitting here on May 21st, I have to, think about this with what is the current reality. And the current reality is that Justin Hall and Vladimir Tarasenko are signed for next season. So cap space is going to run out if you're exceeding higher than 13 million. And there's also just there's a lot more to this conversation, and I don't know how far we want to go with this conversation, but there's no doubt in my mind that Mitch Marner would make the Red Wings a better team, and maybe even would be enough of a improvement for them that they'd be a playoff team next year. I don't know that he alone is enough to make them a Stanley Cup contender. And I don't know that spending $13 million on one player is the better route than spending 6.5 on two players. Obviously depends on who those players are, but I just wonder if that's the best way to spend money. I think that the reason this is such a hot topic outside of him being a big name is that fans are starved for star power on this team and really want to see the Red Wings make a big splash like they used to 15 years ago. And Marner would definitely be that. But my thing is you make a big splash when you're ready to compete for a cup. The Red Wings aren't ready to compete for a cup. They haven't even made the playoffs. So if you're signing Mitch Marner to push you over the edge and make you a consistent playoff team, sure, I guess you can be the Maple Leafs for the next 10 years and never get out of the second round. But if you want to build a Stanley Cup contender, I don't know that this is the move to make right now. Still pursue it, absolutely. But there's got to be a point where you got to walk away because I don't know that giving Marner whatever he wants is the way forward for this team.
As soon as Mitch Marner goes to a new team, he's just going to light it up in the playoffs, and it's just going to kill Leafs fans. Just kill them, eat them up. I'm conflicted on this as well, just because we always say when a superstar like this goes on the market, which rarely happens, you have to go for it. And you're right, Devin. The whole ideal of this team is that they lack star power, and Mitch Marner would change that. Having said that, though, he does come with some baggage. He's lived under a microscope in Toronto for his entire career there. And I'm curious if that's something that he may want to get away from. We've read the tabloids or the Twitters and social feed posts about his father being heavily involved in a lot of his transactions or dealings with the team that has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Again, his relationship with the media, he seems to be one of the scapegoats. They can't stop talking about that pirouette pass he made in the Florida series that led to a Florida goal. But there's no denying that this guy is a top 10 talent. Now, I'm curious, what kind of money is he going to get? We also have to figure out, does he want to go somewhere to a tax-free income state? Like that's something that could happen too. At the end of the day, Devin, there are teams that are closer to the Stanley Cup. There are teams that Mitch Marner could put over the top. And yesterday, I actually ran into someone in the organization with the Los Angeles Kings and someone who was in the know there. And we got into talking about, Kenny Holland coming out here to be the GM. And then the conversation shifted towards Marner. And from what he told me, he's like, the Kings are very interested in Marner. And I said, yeah, and so are 31 other teams too, right? And so he thinks that the Kings might not only be in on Marner, but they might be in on Sam Bennett too. So again, this just proves the point that all of these teams are going to be in on Mitch Marner. Does he choose Detroit? That's what I'm asking. And at this point, I don't see it. And if I had to make a bold prediction now, I think he comes to one of the LA teams, either the Kings or the Ducks. What do you think, Tony?
I mean, that's where I was leaning, the Kings. So it's good to know. Glad I was on the right track there. But you're right. It's you brought up the there's no state income tax in some states, and there is for other states. If we're looking at the Mikko Rantanen contract as a comparable, if we're just focusing on his 12 million AAV. If you're going to a California team, you're gonna have to pay him closer to 13 to have that balanced out at the end of the day. Michigan's a little lower, so it's more like 12 and a half, just throwing that out there. But regardless, it's with Rantanen, the Stars were negotiating with him exclusively at the time and got it done. You're going to have a lot of teams offer deals to Mitch Marner when free agency rolls around, and it might get into a bit of a bidding war. So it could be, I said 13 originally. It could be more than that. It could be 14, maybe even close to 15 by the time we're done with it. Because, like we said, it's not often a player of his caliber hits the market.
It's funny also that you mentioned that for Michigan's income tax, the number would be about 12 and a half, because that's about my number in terms of how high I would go. If 13 gets it done, fine. But beyond that, I don't know if that makes enough sense to me personally. But one other just kind of final point for me too, and I go back and forth on this because the production speaks for itself, and there's plenty of evidence that kind of points to the contrary. But deserved or not, Mitch Marner has a reputation for disappearing in key moments and cracking under pressure, just like the Maple Leafs themselves. Like I said, maybe some of that's a little bit overblown. He produced pretty darn well this year with the Maple Leafs and other years before, but I just can't help but wonder if somebody with that reputation is the type of player you need to be adding to a team that the head coach, Todd McLellan, recently described as taking on too much water when things go bad. They do not rise to the moment. They sink when things get tough. I think the Red Wings would be better served focusing their efforts on players that would change that identity, not be part of it. And maybe Mitch Marner would be a player that would change that identity. But if we are to believe the reputation that he has right now, he would only exacerbate the issue.
Yeah. It's funny. There was a tweet that came out during the Leafs Game 7 where Marner's yelling at the bench about just waking up and getting more involved, but he takes off his helmet and his hair is just completely dry. And the caption was, it's a big bark for someone with dry hair. It's middle of the second period. So I guess take with that what you will. It's a fair point you make, Devin, about Detroit's culture and what's already been, following Marner around a little bit. I still think the Red Wings should pursue him, tires, if you will, but that's 100% fair what you're getting at.
So, Tony, you're obviously aboard the signing of Mitch Marner. Would you, and this is staying with the old school theme, would you streak down Pennsylvania Avenue if the Red Wings can get Marner on a 6 to 7 year deal at 12.5?
No. No. I am. College was a long time ago.
I had to get one old school reference in there today. Well, let's shift gears here, guys. And I do something we've been teasing the last couple of weeks as far as how the team can improve heading into this next season. I talked to you guys earlier this week and asked maybe each of us comes up with 2 bold moves that you would like to see Steve Yzerman make. They don't have to be overly crazy. Mine are kind of a little crazy just to add to the boldness, but I'm curious what you guys came up with for this assignment. And Devin, let's start with you, man. 2 bold moves Steve Yzerman you'd love to see Steve Yzerman make this summer.
Well, I guess let's start with kind of the big one. And this is a good segue from the Mitch Marner talk. There's all this talk about making a splash and adding a big name in free agency and really weaponizing their cap space that they should have. I also mentioned that they really need to address their culture issue that Todd McLellan highlighted. I think what would really help this team is bringing some of that Florida Panthers attitude into their locker room. I think they could use a lot of that snarl, a lot of that playoff experience. A lot of the things that make the Panthers the team they are right now are the things that are making the Red Wings not the team they want to be. So my first bold move is raid the Panthers. Don't just sign Sam Bennett. Sign Aaron Ekblad too. Sign them both. They both bring a lot of snarl at their respective positions. Sam Bennett has very much made a name for himself as being a two-way centerman that can agitate the heck out of his opponents. And I think the Red Wings would love to have a player like that in their lineup. And then Aaron Ekblad, as has become very apparent, isn't afraid to throw a questionable hit from time to time. And whether it's the right thing to welcome to the team you cover or not, I think the Red Wings could use a little bit of that too. And I also, for what it's worth, when it comes to Ekblad, I think there's kind of a good story there. He grew up in Windsor, right across the Ambassador Bridge. Sure, he's well aware of who the Red Wings are and what they're all about. And then also there's a need on the blue line. I seriously think that the Red Wings' biggest need in this offseason is on the blue line. Can't keep the puck out of their darn net. And they have 3 good left-handed defensemen signed for next season, or at least guys that should be able to play. You got Simon Edvinsson, you got Albert Johansson, you got Ben Sherratt, and you even have Eric Gustafsson signed for next season too. You have Moritz Seider signed for the right side, and Justin Hall, and nobody else on the right side. So sign Aaron Ekblad because he's a right-handed defenseman. You lock down a top 4 that should be able to hold their own, and Ekblad could take on some of those tough minutes away from Seider. I've talked about that previously, how I think that would really help Seider as somebody that can take on some tough minutes. And then also you are able to then ease Axel Sandin-Pellikka in. Right now, it seems like everyone's okay with just throwing Axel Sandin-Pellikka into the NHL and hoping he is everything he's going to be right away. The Red Wing way is that they're going to take their time with him. And it probably helps if they have somebody in Detroit that can hold down the fort successfully. So not just hold down the fort, actually do the job. And I think Ekblad could do that. Now moving to my other bold move. This one I'm a little more, maybe if the right things are in place, maybe, I don't know. It's to explore acquiring Mika Zibanejad from the New York Rangers. Let me explain myself here real quick. I play a lot of fantasy football, and not just fantasy football, dynasty fantasy football. And when it comes to playing dynasty fantasy football, something you're always looking for is good buy low opportunities where you can acquire players at a cost that is lower than what it normally would be for one reason or another. Maybe a player has been injured, maybe they had a down season, whatever. I think that this is a prime buy low opportunity for Mika Zibanejad. Very much had his worst season with the New York Rangers this year. The Rangers very much seem like they're another team who wants to change their culture. I think getting rid of Zibanejad would do that for them. And so I think that the Red Wings might be able to acquire this player at a very much discounted price. The biggest reason why I'm maybe with this is he is 32 going on 33 and he's got 4 years left on his contract and he is getting paid $8.5 million. So if he is on his downslope, which more often than not he is, that contract's not going to look any better. And then also, what's the cost and how does that impact just the rest of their system? Zibanejad probably immediately slots in as their second line center, would be fantastic. But then what does that do for Casper? What does that do for Nate Danielson? What does that look like across the board? But just in a vacuum, I very much think the Red Wings should explore the opportunity. He's a Swedish centerman, would fit in with a lot of the guys in the system. And he even in a down year, he still had over 60 points this year. So should be able to help out their offensive potency as well. So 2 opportunities, I think, to change the culture and improve the team. I very much think they should very much be looking at Ekblad and Bennett. But if a good opportunity to bring in Zibanejad is there too, I could definitely get behind that as well.
Evan, you brought up this idea a few weeks ago, but I pushed back being like, no, we got to do the analysis first. So we have a baseline to work with and evaluate the offense and defense and goaltending and hone in on the weak spots and all that. Now it's 2 weeks later. Now we're throwing out names. These names have been thrown out since the season ended. So, like, yeah. Uh, I mentioned while the season was still going on, Vladislav Gavrikov would be a fantastic addition for the Red Wings, but it's too mainstream right now. So, not going to pick that today. On March 9th, I was watching I don't know if it was the Panthers series against Toronto or Tampa at that point, but I texted Devin. I was like, Sam Bennett would look pretty good in a Red Wings jersey. And then like that same week, everyone is saying the same thing. So we all picked up on it. So while those are my top choices, I'm going to go a different direction for this argument's sake. First bold move I would explore is trading for left defenseman Alexander Romanov of the New York Islanders. So a little bit about him. He's 25, fits in with the Red Wings, overall, I guess, cohort of, 20 to 28-ish. Like I said, plays the left side. He is outstanding in his own end, and frankly, is a good player in transition as well. I've been tracking him throughout the season just to see like what could happen there. Like before the salary cap was announced, I already knew the Islanders were going to be in a weird situation where they have 3 defensemen signed to long term, and then they have Romanov and Noah Dobson up for new contracts. And these guys are both going to, frankly, receive big paydays from their current AAVs. So now, I mean, that logic still applies, but we're also expecting the Islanders to take Matthew Schaefer first overall. And so if you sign both Romanov and Dobson to long-term contracts, as you probably would in that scenario, since you can't, it's either you do that or they're an unrestricted free agent next summer. And then you have the 3 others, Pelech, Pollock, and Mayfield signed long-term. That's 6 defensemen there with Schaefer locked up for the long term. You kind of want some more flexibility than that, probably. It's a good defensive core, but you want more flexibility with their roster, especially if you've been a middling team for a little while there. I mean, just like the Red Wings. But if the Red Wings can pry away Romanov, I think he would be a great fit, either paired with Seider for like a good like defensive top pair, or put him on the second pair and let Edvinsson play up with Seider and have Romanov take on some of the heavy minutes as well. I like his game. I think it would fit in well with the Red Wings, as Devin said earlier with Aaron Ekblad. He plays with a little bit of snarl, plays aggressive. You need that sort of player come playoff time. So that's bold move number 1. And bold move number 2 is to explore trading for Alex Laferriere of the Los Angeles Kings. I feel like we have a common theme here with snarl, right? Sam Bennett, Aaron Ekblad, Romanov, now Alex Laferriere. So he just wrapped up his second season with the Kings. He's a restricted free agent this summer. Plays with snarl. He fit in well in their middle 6. I think he has a little bit more to grow in his game, could fit in nicely in Detroit's top 6. Not as a line driver per se, but a first man in on the forecheck. Someone who plays a little more aggressively, like the same reasons we're pitching for Sam Bennett. In my opinion, I think he can turn into a Sam Bennett player down the road. And I think if the Red Wings are going to add a type of player like that, sure, Sam Bennett now, great, but also looking for the next Sam Bennett might come cheaper. So that's something you have to consider as well. Now, looking at his contract projections, it won't be that much cheaper, but at least he is a lot younger than Bennett by a good 4 or 5 years. So again, fitting in with Detroit's age cohort for their core. But again, he plays aggressive, plays hard around the net, gets lots of high danger chances. All of his offensive zone microstats are frankly outstanding. And I think he's flown under the radar just because he's playing out on the West Coast. But also he actually is pretty good in the defensive zone as well. And for a winger, that's you don't see that too often. But yeah, he would be my pick if we're going to trade for a forward. Now, why would the Kings do this? Well, we talked about it earlier. They're trying to land Mitch Marner. They only have so much cap space, and if they're going to need 14 or so million to sign Marner, they got to find cuts somewhere to sign Marner, but also sign Gavrikov or Tanner Jeannot or whoever to fill out their roster. And if you have someone like Alex Laferriere, who's in the market for a 6x6 or somewhere in the 5 to 6 range, well, you might see the opportunity to trade him, get some assets back, and then use that team cap space to make sure Marner signs with the team, or trade him after the fact to become salary cap compliant. I mean, there's a good chance he is part of the Kings' future for a long time moving forward, but if there's an opportunity to pry him loose as they pursue more marquee names, you absolutely have to do it.
Yeah, kick the tires with old Kenny and see if that can come to fruition. My move's a little bolder, and I kind of slipped this out a couple weeks ago, but I saw it gaining a little bit of traction on social media. And if Mitch Marner doesn't make it, I'm curious about. We saw the Blues do it last year, an offer sheet for Matthew Nyes, and I think I'd be willing to give up that compensation. Nyes, he's a big guy. He's 6'3", 220, scoring winger. I think he'd fit great in the top 6. I'd love to see that just because of how well it worked out for the Blues this year. And, that's a shot at the Maple Leafs. It could be a really awful summer for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And who doesn't like that as a Red Wings fan? My other bold move, I'd still kick the tires around Vancouver. I think that organization is going in so many different directions that they're not sure. And if there's a shot at Elias Pettersson, why not see if you can? I mean, would Nate Danielson 2 firsts and a third get it done? Is that an overpay for a 1C? I mean, could that be a bold move that Yzerman looks into? I don't know. That's just, I wanted to go bold with this, and I kind of want to, because I feel there might be a game-changing move this summer. I think we all saw the frustration in Steve Yzerman's eyes during the end-of-season press conference, and I think the timeline is, it's getting to the point where they need to add significant talent, and they're not going to get that through the draft. So that's a move I would love to see. All right, so let's shift gears here and let's get to our prospect profile. And Devin, this is where you take over because you are our specialist. And this week, we're going to look at Justin Carbonneau, a 6'1", 192-pound right winger, plays for the Blainville-Boisbriand Armada in the Q. Definitely want to hear your thoughts on him. I've seen him mocked anywhere from 12 to 21. Big bodied frame guy, already has an NHL frame. Are the Wings kind of worried about their, history they've had with the Q with some recent big draft picks?
Well, I love that question to kind of tee this whole thing up. I personally, just before we even dive into this player, I just kind of personally have a bias against the QMJHL. I think of the 3 leagues within the CHL, they are the weakest. It's a very offensive league. You see defense kind of take a back seat more often than not. I mean, let's talk about what you were kind of referring to there. Philip Zadina came from the QMJHL and was an elite scorer in that league, and was not an elite scorer in the NHL. And Joe Veleno was a exceptional talent that played in the QMJHL and was not an exceptional talent in the NHL. And Anthony Mantha was a exceptional scorer in the QMJHL and was not an exceptional scorer in the NHL. So anyways, my point being is when a player comes from the QMJHL and they have all this good things going on for them and whatever, I'm not saying that they're not going to be a good player, but I'm always just a little bit skeptical because Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, it's not happening. Anyways, let's talk about this player, shall we? Justin Carbonneau is. I feel like I've been saying this about almost every guy that we've been talking about since we started doing these, but he has a lot of Red Wings traits. Go figure. He's a very well-rounded two-way forward that competes every shift, does not take a shift off, competes at both ends of the ice, is serviceable in his own end, has a little bit of work to do as most teenagers do. But yeah, he's another one of those players that is really well-rounded, competes well, has all of those Red Wings intangibles. That's why you see him get mocked to the Red Wings so much in a lot of different mocks because, well, he looks like a lot of their recent picks. In fact, a player that he kind of reminds me a lot of was last year's pick, Michael Brandstad-Nygaard. In fact, Brandstad-Nygaard is 6'1", 207. Guess what? Carbonneau's 6'1", 192. Put on 15 pounds, you're the exact same build, and they kind of play the exact same way. Tony, when we first started doing this, you asked me a question about getting a variable, getting variability within your prospect pool, having different types of prospects. This to me screams, let's get another one because it's Michael Brandstad-Nygaard, but Canadian version. And that's not bad. I don't mean that to come off as like that's a bad thing because Nygaard's a good prospect and so is Carbonneau. But all the other guys that we've talked about before this, I'm just a bit more excited about them because they have at least one other thing that would make them stand out from the rest of the Red Wings prospect pool. And I feel like Carbonneau is just more of the same. And again, maybe that's not a bad thing. Marco Kasper was of that ilk, and he looked really good this year. Nate Danielson's of that ilk. Brandstad-Nygaard, you get the idea. So maybe I need to relax a little bit. But big concerns I have about him outside of the league he plays in. What's his upside? Is he a play driver, or is he just kind of a complimentary guy? Are you comfortable with using the 13th pick on a guy that is going to just be kind of a utility guy in the middle six? Because that's very much a possible outcome with this player. I think that there are other players that should be available at 13 that have higher upside than that, quite frankly. And then other concerns I have is willingness to shoot the puck. He does have a good shot. I wonder if he might fall back into being a bit more of a playmaker at the next level. Not the worst thing in the world, but I would like to see him shoot the puck a little bit more. And then last but not least, his ceiling. Let's talk about the good. I kind of spent this whole time saying why I'm not super excited about this guy. Let's talk about why I am excited about him. Not only is he good at both ends of the ice, competes well. I do like those traits, believe it or not. But he also has all the makings to be a really good power forward. He's not afraid of contact. He does go to the dirty areas of the ice, and he does play a heavy game. I don't see that going away. In fact, I think that's kind of the part of his game that you have to nurture if you are drafting him. But for me, it just kind of goes back to the players we've talked about before today, and then some of the players we're going to talk about after today. I'm just more excited about them. And that's not necessarily a fault of Carbonneau's. It's just, I've seen this player. The Red Wings have this player. Sure, they could have another one, but also they could have something different. And I think that the Red Wings could really use something different in their prospect pool.
All right, Devin. So, we heard your piece on Carbonneau. We're going to do a little this or that like we've done in the past. So I'm going to throw out some names, and you're going to tell me who you'd prefer. So Justin Carbonneau or Jackson Smith?
Okay, Jackson Smith.
Go figure, you're president of his fan club. Justin Carbonneau or Radim Mirka?
Mirka.
Interesting. All right. Let's go with Justin Carbonneau or Cole Reshny.
Carbonneau.
All right, last one. Justin Carbonneau or Brady Martin?
I'm not kidding. I somehow I telepathically knew where you're going with this one. I will give it to Martin ever so slightly.
All right. You heard it there first.
All right, guys. Good stuff. Summer of Mitch-a-Palooza is here. Tony, I don't know why you wouldn't go down streaking, man. I'll go streaking down Manhattan Beach in a Red Wings jersey. Can you imagine what people of LA would think if they saw a man streaking down the street screaming Mitch Marner signed with Detroit? Like, that would be ultimate, right? Or they'd be pretty freaked out, and I'd probably end up in a mental hospital.
I think they'd be more accommodating than people in DC. That's just me.
Thanks for listening to episode 36 of the Flying Octopus Podcast. Quick reminder of where you can find us. Watch us on YouTube at the Flying Octopod channel. And you can follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Flying Octopod. And also, don't forget to listen on iTunes and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a like, a review. And also let us know if there's any prospects you'd like Devin to hit on for the next couple draft prospect profiles that we'll be doing in upcoming weeks. Guys, great chatting with you. I hope you guys are watching the Tigers. This run is just absolutely amazing. I did not see the Tigers having the best record in baseball at this point in the season. So at least we have the summer of Detroit sports with that. So with that, guys, we'll talk next week. More draft prospect profiles, and hopefully there's some more Red Wings news to talk about as the conference finals get underway. See you next week.
We're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.